My dad joked that I was the mistake during his speech at our family gathering. Everyone laughed except me. So, while they were all having fun, I packed my things and left without a word. Now, they're blowing up my phone saying, "What your dad said wasn't just a bad joke. It was a public put-down wrapped in humor, and the context matters. He singled you out, labeled you as an accident, and did it in a room where you were already feeling like the least valued one. That's not harmless teasing, that's dismissive and, honestly, pretty hurtful behavior." The part that seems to be sticking with you isn't just the words themselves, but the pattern behind them. You mentioned he's made comments like this before, just more quietly. This time it was out in the open and no one pushed back. That can feel less like he made a joke and more like this is how they all see me, even if that's not entirely true. Silence from others in those moments often feels like agreement, even when it's actually discomfort or avoidance. Walking out wasn't dramatic, it was a boundary. You removed yourself from a situation where you were being disrespected. A lot of people would have stayed, laughed it off, and then carried that resentment for years. You didn't do that. Where things get complicated is what happens next. Their texts asking what's wrong could mean a few different things. They genuinely didn't realize how hurtful it was, which says something about their awareness, not your sensitivity. They noticed your reaction but don't understand it, or they're trying to smooth things over without really addressing the issue. None of those automatically make you wrong. If you're still trying to figure out how you feel, it might help to separate a few layers. The comment itself, hurtful, minimizing, not appropriate for a toast. The history, this wasn't isolated, it tapped into years of feeling second best. The audience reaction, no one intervened, which amplified the humiliation. Your response, leaving instead of engaging. That last one is important. You didn't escalate, you didn't cause a scene, you just exited. That's actually a pretty controlled reaction given how intense that moment sounds. The bigger question now isn't "was I wrong to leave?" You weren't, but what you want going forward. Do you want acknowledgement, an apology, distance, or just to understand your own reaction better so it doesn't keep looping in your head? Also, one thing to be careful of, it's easy after moments like this to rewrite the whole family dynamic as completely against you. There's clearly a pattern with your dad, but that doesn't necessarily mean your siblings or mom consciously agree with him. They might just be used to his behavior and don't challenge it. That's not great, but it's different from active malice. If you want, tell me what those texts actually said. The wording usually reveals a lot about whether they're minimizing what happened or genuinely trying to understand. I didn't respond. I couldn't. That night, I just sat in my room scrolling through social media trying to distract myself from everything that had happened. But it didn't work. I couldn't stop thinking about it, about how my dad had taken what should have been a celebration and turned it into something that felt like an insult. And about how, even after everything, I had no idea how I was supposed to face them again. The next few days blurred together, but not in a way that made anything easier to forget. It felt more like my life had been stuck on a loop, constant messages, missed calls, and voices in my head telling me I was the problem. My phone didn't stop buzzing. Rick called every few hours, leaving angry voicemails. Emily and Travis kept texting, asking what was going on, telling me I was being dramatic. I couldn't deal with it. It felt like they were all trying to convince me I was overreacting. I didn't respond. I couldn't, but that didn't stop them. On the third day after the party, Mom Karen finally texted me. It was short and direct. "Olivia, I don't know what's going on with you, but Rick is upset. You need to call him. We're all really disappointed in how you handled things. Don't make this worse." I stared at her message for a long time. I didn't know what hurt more, the fact that she was siding with Rick, or that she couldn't even see why I was upset. I had spent years trying to earn her approval, trying to be the daughter she wanted, and yet here she was, defending Rick as if nothing had happened, as if I was the one causing problems. It wasn't just that. There was this sinking feeling that she was trying to make me feel guilty for leaving, like they all wanted me to apologize for being hurt, like they expected me to pretend it didn't matter that Rick had called me a mistake in front of everyone. I couldn't believe this was happening. That night, Rick left another voicemail. This one was different, less anger, more condescension. He spoke in that familiar tone I'd heard my entire life, the one that always made me feel small, like I was an inconvenience. Olivia, I've been thinking about everything. I know you've got a lot of emotions right now, but you need to understand something. I didn't mean to hurt you. It was just a joke, and everyone laughed. Maybe you need to lighten up a little. You've got to stop being so sensitive. It's been years, and I'm still waiting for you to grow up. I sat there holding my phone, his words echoing in my head. Still waiting for you to grow up, that's what he said. And in that moment, something became clear. My dad had always believed I was the one who needed to change. He had always seen me as the problem, but I wasn't the one who needed to grow up. I was the one who had been treated like a child my entire life. No matter how old I got, how hard I worked, or how much I achieved, it was never enough. I couldn't even bring myself to listen to the rest of the message. I deleted it immediately, and it wasn't just Rick. Emily kept calling over and over. Every time I ignored her, the messages got worse. At first, she tried to sound understanding, asking if I was okay, but by the third day, her tone had changed. "Come on, Liv. It's been long enough. This is ridiculous. You can't just stay mad forever." Then came another message. "I get that you're hurt, but this is family. You're being selfish right now. You're hurting all of us, not just yourself." That one hit hard. It was the same thing Rick had always done, turning everything around, making my reaction the problem instead of what had been done to me. Emily, who had always tried to keep the peace, was now repeating the same patterns, telling me to just let it go. At first, I thought maybe she didn't understand how much it hurt. Maybe she didn't know what it was like growing up under Rick's expectations, always being the one who fell short. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something. Emily wasn't just unaware. She was complicit. She had seen how Rick treated me over the years, and instead of standing up for me, she had laughed along. She had always looked the other way because it was easier, and now she was doing the same thing, telling me to get over it. Then there was Travis. I hadn't heard from him for a while, and part of me had hoped he would be different, that he'd call me out of nowhere and acknowledge how wrong this was. But he didn't. He sent a text, and it sounded almost identical to Emily's. "You've really gone too far this time, Liv. You're just making everything harder for all of us. Stop being so dramatic." It stung, but not as much as Rick's words. Travis had always been the golden child in Rick's eyes. He could do no wrong. And I guess that had shaped him, because now he was defending Rick too. It felt like everyone had chosen sides, and I was the one left alone on the outside, with no one even trying to understand why I felt the way I did. I don't know how long I sat there staring at my phone, but eventually I reached a breaking point. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep being the one holding this family together when no one else cared enough to do the same for me. I couldn't keep being the one who always made sacrifices, who always tried to keep the peace, only to be ignored, belittled, or worse, turned into the family joke. That's when I made my decision. I was done. I wasn't going to let them treat me like this anymore. I wasn't going to beg for their approval, and I wasn't going to sit around waiting for them to change how they saw me. But what I didn't expect was how quickly things escalated after that. The calls didn't stop, and the messages kept coming. This time, though, the tone had shifted. Now they were angry. Rick was demanding an explanation. Emily was accusing me of ruining everything. And Travis was the worst. He called me a drama queen and said I was going to destroy the family if I didn't come back. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to stay strong, but I could feel the weight of everything pressing down on me. The pressure kept building, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could hold out. But just as I was about to give in, something happened that made me realize I couldn't back down. I got a text from Rick. It was short, but it was the final straw. "You really are the problem here, Olivia. Maybe if you stop being so selfish and childish, you could be part of this family again." That message hit me harder than any of the others. Maybe if you stopped being so selfish and childish, you could be part of this family again. His words burned in a way the others hadn't. This wasn't just him telling me to apologize. This was dismissal. This was Rick finally saying it outright. I wasn't good enough for him, and I never had been. He wasn't just upset about the situation anymore, he was making it clear that I was the one who needed to change if I ever wanted to fit into this family. I stared at the screen for a long time. My hand was shaking, but not from fear. This was anger. Pure, seething anger. It wasn't just what he said, it was everything. All the years of trying to prove myself just to earn his approval, only to be dismissed as a mistake. All the times I felt invisible, always in the background while Travis and Emily were praised. All the moments I stayed quiet to keep the peace, trying to be the good daughter, the good sister, because that was what was expected of me. Not anymore. I set my phone down and walked over to the small desk in the corner of my room. Inside one of the drawers was a notebook where I had written down so many of my thoughts over the years. Most of it was just scattered notes, things I never said out loud to anyone, especially not to Rick. But in that moment, I knew it was time to act. I couldn't stay silent, and I wasn't going to let them keep thinking I was the one in the wrong. I picked up a pen and started writing. I wasn't going to take it anymore. This wasn't just about leaving a family event. It was about standing up for myself, about showing all of them that I was done letting them walk all over me. I wasn't the one who needed to apologize. I wasn't the one who had done anything wrong. The first step was getting my finances in order. My job was stable enough for me to live independently. I had been building up my savings over the past few years, just in case. I had always known that one day I might need to leave, and now that time had come. Over the next few days, I planned everything carefully. I wasn't going to confront them directly. No, that wouldn't be enough. I needed them to feel what I had felt all these years, the pain of being invisible, of constantly having to prove my worth. I started with Rick's business. He owned a small but moderately successful construction company. It wasn't massive, but he took immense pride in it. In many ways, it had become his entire identity. It was the one thing he truly cared about, the thing he constantly bragged about at family gatherings. It was the only time he ever seemed genuinely satisfied with himself. But it also made him unbearable. For weeks I had been paying attention, gathering small details, things I knew would bruise his pride, things that would hit where it hurt most. His company wasn't as solid as he believed. There were cracks beneath the surface. His employees weren't as loyal as he thought, and some of his business dealings were more questionable than he would ever admit. I didn't want to destroy his business, but I did want him to feel what I had felt, the slow realization that everything he had built might not be as stable as he believed. So I reached out to a few people. It wasn't illegal, not exactly, but I gathered enough information to make things uncomfortable for him. A couple of calls, a few rumors passed to the right people, and suddenly his reputation began to fray at the edges. Nothing too obvious, just enough to make him second-guess everything. Meanwhile, Emily and Travis kept texting. They were relentless. They couldn't understand why I wouldn't just come back, why I was making everything so complicated. The messages grew harsher. Emily accused me of ruining the family and acting like a child. Travis sent long texts about how I needed to get over myself and stop dragging everyone down with my drama. I didn't respond. I didn't even feel tempted to. But Rick, that was different. With every call and message, I could feel the pressure building. He wasn't just angry anymore. He was desperate. I could tell from his messages that something was starting to go wrong with his business. The rumors were spreading, and he didn't like it. But instead of admitting things were slipping, he blamed me for everything. It was as if he believed I had orchestrated it all. In one message, he even said, "If you don't come back, you'll be responsible for ruining everything I've worked for." It was hard not to laugh the way he twisted everything. The way he still tried to make me feel guilty. It was almost comical, but at the same time there was a knot in my stomach. I hadn't destroyed anything. He had done that himself. I had only stepped back and let things unfold. A week passed and things escalated. Rick's business started experiencing problems. There were complaints about delayed projects, and some clients began backing out of deals. It wasn't catastrophic, but it was enough to make him anxious. He had never handled stress well, and the pressure was getting to him. I could tell because he started messaging me more often, demanding I talk to him. At one point, he even threatened to come to my apartment if I didn't respond. That's when I knew it was time. I wasn't going to just walk away quietly. This was my revenge, and I needed him to understand exactly why I had done it. I wasn't going to let him keep pretending I was the problem, the mistake in his life. I wanted him to see that I was done. So one evening, when I knew he would be home, I did something I knew would hit him hard. I sent him a message, short and direct. "Enjoy the fallout. I'm done pretending I'm your punching bag. Then I blocked his number. The day I blocked Rick, I felt a strange mix of relief and empowerment. The chaos had been building for so long that it felt like I had been holding my breath, waiting for the moment I could finally exhale. I wasn't just stepping away from my family, I was taking control of my life, of my happiness. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about me. The aftermath was as intense as I expected. I don't think anyone could have predicted just how much everything would unravel once I stepped away. I thought the worst was over, but honestly, that was when the storm really began. Rick was furious. I could feel it even before I heard from him. Every few hours, my phone buzzed with messages from him demanding an explanation. At first, it was the usual "you're being ridiculous," but then it turned personal. "You really think this is the answer?" he wrote. "You think I don't care about you? You think I'm some monster? You're wrong, Olivia. You've always been wrong." I didn't respond, not once. It was hard, but every time I felt myself wavering, I thought back to that night, how he made that joke in front of everyone, how he humiliated me without a second thought. I wasn't the one who needed to apologize. He was. Meanwhile, the pressure on his business kept building. It wasn't just rumors anymore. People were starting to talk openly about his failed projects. Contractors were pulling out, suppliers were backing away, and worst of all, his clients were beginning to question his credibility. It wasn't a complete collapse, but it was enough to push him into panic, and in that panic he acted. I kept my distance, but I could still hear things through the grapevine. Emily and Travis were calling him, trying to calm him down. They were frustrated with me too, but they didn't fully understand what was happening. To them, this was just a family conflict. To Rick, it was a threat to everything he had built. To him, I was an inconvenience, but more than that, I was the reason everything was falling apart. I wasn't just his daughter anymore. I was his enemy. And in a way, that was exactly what I wanted. It was never about completely tearing him down. It was about showing him that the foundation of his so-called perfect life wasn't as solid as he believed. The cracks had always been there. I just made sure they were exposed. As the weeks passed, I stayed in my apartment, sticking to my plan. I worked full-time, kept myself busy, and honestly felt freer than I had in years. I made new friends, started volunteering on weekends, and put my energy into things that actually made me feel good about myself. I wasn't constantly waiting for Rick or my mom to approve of me. I was just me, and for the first time in a long time, that was enough. But Rick wasn't ready to give up. One afternoon, I heard an unexpected knock at my door. When I opened it, there he was, standing in front of me, looking more disheveled than I had ever seen him. He hadn't shaved, his shirt was wrinkled, and he looked like a man who had lost control of everything. "Olivia," he said, his voice unusually low. "Can we talk?" I didn't let him in right away. I stood there for a moment, just looking at him. I had to admit, I hadn't expected this. I wasn't sure what I had expected, but seeing him like this, vulnerable, maybe even desperate, wasn't part of the plan. But I didn't let it soften me. I couldn't. "No, Rick," I said steadily. "There's nothing left to talk about." His expression shifted to surprise, confusion, then anger. "You don't even care anymore, do you? You think this is how things should be? Me begging you to come back to the family?" I didn't flinch. "You're the one who made me leave. Remember? I didn't choose this. You made it clear I was never good enough, and now you're upset because I'm not playing along anymore." He looked like he might say something else, but he didn't. He just stood there, shoulders slumped, defeated. It felt like the air had been pulled out of the room. I could see the reality settling in for him. His business wasn't recovering as quickly as he thought. Emily and Travis were growing impatient. His perfect little family was unraveling, and I had become the symbol of that unraveling. "Look," I said after a moment, "I'm not here to ruin your life. I'm not here to destroy your business, but I am done being your punching bag. I've spent my whole life waiting for you to love me, and I'm done. You've made it clear how you feel, and I can't keep pretending I don't see it anymore." For a long moment, he said nothing. His jaw tightened, and then finally he nodded. It wasn't a big gesture, but it was enough for me to understand that he heard me. "You've made your point," he said quietly. Then he left. It wasn't the dramatic confrontation I had imagined, but it was enough. I had taken back control, and somehow that felt more satisfying than any outburst of anger or revenge ever could have been. I didn't need his apology, and I definitely didn't need his approval. Over the next few months, things slowly settled. Rick's business never fully recovered, but it wasn't as bad as I had expected. Emily and Travis eventually stopped calling. They had their own lives to focus on, and I think they realized I wasn't coming back, no matter how much they tried to guilt me into it. My mom sent a few half-hearted messages, but nothing personal. It was as if they had all finally accepted that I wasn't part of the dynamic anymore. I still haven't heard from Rick. I'm sure he's still bitter, but at this point, I'm just relieved to be free from it all. I've learned that I don't need them. I never did. I don't regret walking away even though it was hard. I've built a life for myself that's truly mine, and I'm finally living on my own terms. And in the end, that's the best kind of revenge I could have asked for.